Okay, a very good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today for an interesting session on the life in Paws, the new normal in pet care. My name is Murali, and I shall be the chair for this session. Now, as we all know, nothing compares to the joy of coming home to a loyal companion. The unconditional love of a pet can do more than keep you company. So how can we in return actually look into the needs of pets during such trying times? Now today, we are actually fortunate to have with us Miss World Malaysia 2009 and Any Help Ambassador, Miss Thanuja Ananthan, who will enlighten us further on this issue. Thanuja's first love is animals, showing compassion for animals and their well-being. Thanuja is involved in various animal protection and welfare campaigns. We are also privileged to have with us here today Mr. Shrilan Siva, who's an entrepreneur who has more than 20 years of experience in the animal health industry. His passion in animal care started from young with a strong influence from his father, Datuk Dr. Siva, who established the very first veterinary hospital and specialty center in the country. Mr. Shrilan is currently the secretary for the Malaysian National Animal Welfare Foundation, MNAWF. All right, so to the participants who are here today, please kindly mute your mics to avoid any distortion. We will have Q&A session. We'll have a Q&A session later, whereby you can actually type your questions in the chat, and I will highlight them to the speakers. Now, let me call upon Ms. Thanuja to share her thoughts on how we can reach out to animals during such trying times, especially strays. Ms. Thanuja.
Yeah, thank you, Murali. Thank you for having me. I think all of us, having being homebound from March, not being able to go out and our movements being very restricted. As a feeder myself, who feeds strays around my area, and I travel quite a bit to feed my strays as well. It was very challenging initially to go out and continue feeding them on a daily basis. So what happened was the first week it was very difficult. Some dogs went without food for about 3 to 4 days. But I made sure that I could put whatever amount of food that I could leave outside and come back. And then with the help of the SPCA, I managed to actually get a letter to be able to go out and feed these strays. In my area, what I did was I made friends with all the guards in the community, and I left them bags of food to be able to help me feed the strays in that area. So that's what I did personally on that count, and I shared it with certain NGOs as well. And from there, I think we've been able to still reach out to these strays because, as we know, shops have closed. Strays are unable to go out and forage for food at that point in time. Even now, it's still very difficult. And we felt that we needed to do something. So I went on that route and did whatever I could on my end. So if you do have strays in your area, you can probably resort to helping out in such a way.
Thank you, Tanuja. Thank you. Mr. Shrilan.
Yes, sir. Well, with regards to strays, I think coming from the veterinary side, it's sad that during the MCO, everyone was basically homebound and it was a bit tough to move. And there was also concerns of the transmission of COVID to animals and pets. But overall, in the big picture of it, I think pets actually gained a lot from this MCO because everyone was at home. I think they got spoiled to bits one way or other. And the only thing with strays is one has to be careful when they're out in the field, in the streets, feeding the animals. I guess taking precautions necessary. Having gloves, direct contact will be one particular thing you need to look into. And I think the number of strays on the street from where I am in Tawantun actually has kind of dropped. I don't know for what reason. But in this day and age, I think everyone just try their very best to help as best as they can.
Right. with regards to creating a comfortable lifestyle in our homes for these pets during this MCO, what are your thoughts, Thanuja? How do we go about creating that environment for them?
Well, for those fortunate enough to be able to have a compound at home and dogs, I think it's much easier to go about with your pets because we aren't able to go take them out for their walks as usual. And even animals get frustrated, when they don't get their daily dose of walks, especially. So for me, I tend to spend more time with my pets, sitting down, talking to them more. I think Shri would have a better idea as to how to approach this subject because he owns a doggy school, so he'll be able to share more. But personally, I think when you know your pets, you know what they feel and how to approach them. So what I was doing was just showering them with love and talking to them more, keeping them active, running around the gardens, giving them treats, rewarding them when I could. So those are the little things I was doing personally with my dogs back at home. And for me, it was definitely a much more bonding time that I had with my pets. And I think it only became stronger. And I realized more so the importance and the benefits, actually, more than anything, of having a companion animal at home with me during these times.
Oh, precisely, precisely. I think pets do kind of home in and center on this area of love and care during this period, and pets give you total care, total love. And I guess with I think the stresses we are going through, um, and I think a lot of people are going through a fair bit during this MCO. I do believe animals play a very important role in becoming the epicenter of share and care. And I
Yeah.
guess with all the love and joy they give when they come and they sit next to you or they crawl into you at bed, I think that little plus and little joys, I think, are the real key aspects that keeps us going, I think, on a daily basis.
Positively.
Yeah, true, totally, totally true. And I think keep to routines. I would still urge anyone who owns a pet to keep to the daily routines as if you did with work. Meaning, if you take your dogs out for walk in the morning, get them on a leash in the morning, but move around your home. If you're living in apartments, it's a bit tough, I know, but you still have to go through a particular routine. And pets, especially dogs, they love a routine. And if you keep the routine moving on with the walks and with the leash, being on leash, and then playing with them a bit, giving them a couple of commands to sit, stay, and do something funky. They always want to kind of, how do I put it? They always would like to do something that make you communicate with them more. And so if you get this routine going, I guess that'll keep some of the behavioral aspects in sync. Where dogs need a pack leader, and I think Cesar
Right.
Milan puts this up very clearly. And if you don't do this and build this routine and all the stuff as you go along normally, I guess the animal tends to misbehave too. So we have got aspects of there's also over pampering where the animals tend to take up most of your time. But hey, this is the part where you spend as much time with the pet, and that's the reason why you have a pet in the first place, is to
Right.
share the love and care.
Okay. Mr. Shrilan, how about when dealing with cats? Would it be the same when it comes to cats as well?
Well, the biggest thing we're trying to share with people is, especially during this period, I know cats love to be feral, and I'm always concerned about feral means, off out of the house and back again. My biggest concern during this period is when cats go feral, they're going to be all over the place. It
Right.
would be, it would be a suggestion to keep the cats indoors, number one. Number two, to think about ways and means to catify your place. Examples would be cats love a scratch post anyway. They love scratching half their life. So you may have to look at places in your home where the cats could have a play den to play around and have fun with. And there are also there's a lot of stuff on YouTube now that you could use in regards to even training your cat and doing funky tricks. I
Right.
would suggest to do that. There's a lot of access to technology these days, but try as far as possible not to let the cat out. And that's the
Oh,
biggest concern I have, because all you need is one cat going out, coming back, and if you have other cats, they bring in a lot of stuff anyway.
right.
Secondly, if you're out with your dog or your cat or your pet, please make sure when you bring them back, you wipe them down. Shampooing every day is going to be a tough thing because pets have a particular fur, and you can't shampoo them all the time, but you need to kind of wipe them down and make sure they're clean as they're moving back into the house. That's some that's a safety tip that I would like to recommend.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanuja, anything you would like to share with regards to cats? Any experiences you've had?
Well, it was very to hear what Mrs. Shrilan was saying about cats. I only have stray cats that I feed behind my house, and they come and go as freely as they like. So I don't really have, direct interaction with a cat to know all that. So that was very interesting what Mrs. Shrilan shared just now. But yeah, my stray cat just come and go, leave them food, leave them water, and they're pretty much fine.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as they're happy at the end of the day, right?
Most important
Yep.
thing.
Yeah.
True.
Okay, I've got some questions here. I'll take one of these questions. It's from Mr. Daminder Singh, okay, from Health Matriculation Center. His question is, are we encouraging people to abandon animals when some culprits know that there are many kind-hearted people out there who will look into the welfare of these abandoned animals? If yes, how do we tackle this? Creating awareness doesn't seem to be the solution. That's the question from Mr. Daminder. Maybe Thanuja, you want to start, and then can pass it to Mr. Shrilan.
To Mr. Daminder's question, I think it was very sad during the MCO period. I mean, now we're in CMCO. The amount of pets that were abandoned and dumped was very, very high in a percentage out there. And I think NGOs were really overwhelmed with this issue. I think I even wrote a post about this regarding, not because the minute an article emerged about how COVID could spread via pets, I think that's when everybody went really just went off hook. And for me, that's why it's very important, I feel. Everybody has a platform these days. Everybody's online. I think what you share, please be very mindful of what you share online, because people take it into account, people take it seriously, and then it's just like a domino effect that just channels through. And I was very careful not to share articles regarding COVID can spread via a dog, or COVID can spread via a cat, because I know the impact that would have in society. I feel, the cases were already out there. We were pushing a lot of adoption via online as much as we could. But I think people also need to realize when you have a pet, it's a minimum, if you have a cat, minimum 10, 15-year commitment, just like when you have a dog. And we're specifically talking here about companion animals and being abandoned during this period of time. I think just remember that they always give you unconditional love, regardless of whatever happens. And it is your responsibility to look after them till their very last breath. Because if you just abandon a companion animal out in the street, it will not survive, unlike a stray who's lived all its life on the streets. They do not know how to forage for food, because every day you are feeding them, you are caring for them. If you just leave your dog of 5 years that you've looked after, just leaving them on the streets, they will not survive. They will die. They will starve to death, or they'll just go and hover under a car somewhere, find for shelter, and they will not come out because they wouldn't know what to do. And that's very, very sad. So I think before getting a pet, be very mindful. It's a commitment that you need to push through till that animal's very last breath. And it's a companion animal. So I think people need to be educated on this front first and foremost. And I think more than anything, be really careful what you share online. I think that's a huge impact on society.
Yeah, agreed. I think we have to be very cautious in what we say online nowadays, especially in current times, because everyone is actually, online. So, certain messages, that we put forth can be quite.
Always be mindful what you're sharing, because everybody has a platform these days. Everybody feels that they need to have an opinion. No one is saying no, but I think you just need to be very mindful of the effects of what you say, that will just reach out to society, and it can be very, very damaging in that aspect.
True. Yeah, being mindful, that's the key. I agree. Very true. Mr. Shrilan,
Yes.
your input, sir.
Well, I mean, firstly, when you're looking at domesticated pets, the entity would be we, the human beings are the custodians to manage and maintain the animal. Therefore, Tanuja is spot on with the point that the moment you bring a pet into your home, it's like having a child that stays a child for life up to the point it goes, and therefore we have to be responsible at any one time in having that pet on board and making sure the upkeep of ourselves and the pet is looked into. And I think generally Malaysians as a whole, I think would be classified a lot more caring than some other countries. But yes, at the initial onset on the issue, there was news outbreak on the transmission of coronavirus onto animals and pets. People kind of didn't read the whole dynamics of the story. In fact, if the pet had picked it up, it was through the owner. And more so, I think it's imperative to be clear that since the pet has been with you during the entire period, I don't think the pet is going to be bringing in any form of viral outbreak unless it's been left out, as I put it, feral. And that's why we recommend owners to keep the pet indoors with them, in-house with them at all times, at the same time to ensure the upkeep of the animal is looked into.
Yeah, okay. It was the tiger case, wasn't it? The tiger that contracted COVID from its owner, or was it from
the trainer? From the trainer, zookeeper, yes.
Yes, right. So, just be really careful about what you share, because if people don't go about sharing such information, I actually remember seeing an article at that point in time. It was about, it was a picture of a Cocker Spaniel and this lady, and it says that COVID can spread through dogs. And I was like, whoa, you want to make sure that the source is legitimate before you share such articles online. You don't go about simply sharing like this because, like I said, it's going to cause a whole lot of issues. And it happened, so many owners abandoned their animals on the streets. There was in fact a case in Puchong, this really cute white puppy that was tied to a pole, a light pole in the middle of the night. And this lady was very kind she was living in the area, and she texted the groups, and she was like, I don't know where this dog emerged all of a sudden. I just came out 3 hours ago, and now there's this white puppy tied to this pole. She was so kind to take it in, and good news, she found a home for it. But it all happened when those articles were being shared, and people were just not being mindful about things like this. So I think, to answer Mr. Darminder's question, I wouldn't say we are. I don't know what you mean when you say we are encouraging people to leave animals, abandon animals, but I think more than anything, you need to be really cautious about what you share and what you say in such crises. And we're living unprecedented times at this point in time. So,
true.
Yeah,
and also to add on from Tanuja, if you're a pet owner, just take care of your pet and do your best, and spend your time with them and bond. That's the only thing you could do during this period. And if everyone takes care of their own pets well, I don't think you're going to see strays out there added on to the whole pool. And that's, I think, that's the first thing we should do.
Correct. And to add to what Sri said, can you imagine if everybody ended up abandoning their pets? The government's already handling a pandemic. You're going to cause further issues by abandoning animals. And you know what's going to happen in Malaysia? Let's be very transparent. They're going to go on a shooting spree and start, culling all the strays that you have out there. So that's not, you don't want to add another burden to your government who's trying to currently, just control this pandemic situation, and you don't want to add on to that. If you can't help, just do the necessaries that you need to do, and not add to more issues within the community or society.
True.
Right. It's quite interesting, Mr. Shrilan, what you mentioned just now, that if let's say the pet does contract coronavirus, it would be from the owner, right? That's what you mentioned earlier.
Yes, as long as the animal is indoor. If the animal is feral, there's a whole different picture altogether. And this is something we're trying to, educate everyone that, your pet is your responsibility. Right. So, so please don't open the gate and just let them run out there. And that's where socialization is important. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube today on things you can do, either a pet owner, a cat owner, a dog owner, and even for hamsters and all that, which you can learn and practice at home. So I guess technology today is amazing. I mean, everything is up in the air. But again, when you're viewing these videos, also understand and digest it first and check the source. Make sure it's from a reliable source, and you could practice some of the tips at home instead of letting the dog out as you would normally do and assume that everything's okay when it comes back in. I would say keep the dogs and cats in-house, and that's the first thing we would do, as well as they need exercise. They still need that bit of activity. Cats are easier because they kind of run around all over the place. But with dogs, you kind of have to give them into a cycle, into a regime.
Right. I was just about to ask you, Mr. Shrilan, whether you had any resources we could. Sorry, Thanuja. Thanuja, you were saying something. Please. Sorry.
I was just trying to practice more hygiene. That's it. Wash your hands more and yeah, just keep safe.
Yep. Oh. Keep the house. I mean, in the house environment has to be clean. Vacuum. You may have to vacuum a bit more since you're at home, but you got to do it. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you whether there were any sites or any platforms where we could get resources on how to actually deal with pets and all. But as you have mentioned just now, YouTube would be a good resource, right? Where we can
search and find socialization for dogs, but there's a whole host of them. And I think you kind of have to review it, digest it, and see whether would this suit what I need. Because you got stuff, for example, with dogs, you got smaller breeds, you got larger breeds. So there are different types of activities you could participate with, but you could search and have a look.
Okay. We have another question here from Miss Michelle Joseph. Her question is, can you explain about buying pets and adopting pets? I've heard about an article saying that we should adopt pets instead of buying them, but I don't really understand the differences. Yes, that's the question. The difference between buying pets and adopting pets. Mr. Shrilan, do you want to start?
I guess there are many ways to look at it. Number one, people do buy certain breeds that they are interested in. Some people love a particular breed, for example. So you tend to buy the particular pet from a breeder, or these days more from a breeder or from a source. But when you do too, you should look out for a few things. Ensure that the puppy or the kitten is vaccinated. It is a full medical record that has gone to a vet and has been vaccinated. You may want to understand from the breeder about that species, the breed, and understand a bit more about the things you need to do if you're going to be taking the breed over. Because different breeds, for example, in dogs, we've got smaller breeds, from toy breeds right up to large breeds. There's a whole big vast range of pets here. And also, will that suit your environment? Are you living in a smaller home or in a larger home? But taking other than that into perspective, I think people do tend to buy pets because they're looking for a particular breed. The reason why the whole change of mindset has been adopt a pet was, in fact, whether it's a pedigree or not, all dogs are the same. They give you that total love. The bond will always be there. It's how you look to it, and that's why people have been encouraging. I think the last 10 years there's been a major shift into adopt and not buy.
Right. Thank you.
Whether or not the buying will stop, I don't think so, because there'll still be this interest for particular breeds. But I think for the first-time owner, I think it's good to talk to the relevant participant who's either having the pet to be rehomed, could be a shelter, or the particular breeder, and understand first the responsibilities in owning a pet first before doing so. That I think is critical. Plus, if you had friends or family who already has a dog or cat, and you have that affinity for that particular breed, it's good to work with them and find out what are the things they do. And maybe you could be a surrogate pet parent for a weekend or so to get the hang of taking care of the pet while they are busy. Unfortunately, with the MCO, it's a bit difficult to move home to home. I don't think that'll be a good option at this juncture. But these are things you may want to do before owning a pet, because it's a full-on responsibility, as Thanuja has mentioned.
Right. Yes, Thanuja, your input regarding...
Sri said, surrogacy. What's that term that a lot of people are actually keeping pets from shelters? They're adopting them and keeping them at home. What's the word? I can't remember now. What it? They're not adopting.
I know it's like a temporary rehome. It's a temporary home thingy.
Overseas, the shelters are empty at this point in time because a lot of people are adopting the pets in the meanwhile while everybody's stuck at home, nothing to do. I don't know if you surrogacy. Oh God, I can't find the word. There's actually a word for it. Murali, if you can help me figure it out. I can't remember what it is. But shelters are empty overseas. Lots of articles have been coming out about that, where people are taking in these dogs because we are at home for 3 months. We can't do anything. So why not have like Shri said, it's a love situation. They give you unconditional love and companionship, and so that was great to hear. That's happening world over. When it comes to coming back to the question, particularly the difference between adopting and shopping, I think they call it adopt, don't shop. And I think everybody here would know that I'm a huge advocate for adopt, don't shop. It's one of my mantras that I live by, literally.
Yeah,
indeed.
Having said that, I think Mr. Shrilan gave a very good point in stating that people still love your pure breeds. We still love our pure breeds, and there's no difference between a German Shepherd or a stray dog in the streets. They still give unconditional love.
Yes.
In fact, I can say pure breeds are slightly more intelligent, maybe a little bit more loving, a little bit more giving. But I've had pure breeds my whole life, and then I rescue a stray, and I'm like, oh my God, this little thing that's been living with me for 12, 13 years. It's almost a sense of understanding that, hey, you rescued me from the streets, and I just have that little bit more love to give. Which is what I've seen from my own experience. I feel like it's very important that you're aware when you do buy a pet or a pure breed. Like Shrilan said, get it from a responsible breeder, because you do know. I don't know whether what's her name again? Sorry, the person who directed this question.
Her name is Michelle. Miss Michelle.
Michelle.
Yeah. Michelle.
Heard of puppy mills? You might want to go and Google. That's a whole different issue when it comes to why people do not buy pure breeds. That's why they say if you do want a pure breed dog, please go and get it from a responsible breeder who is looking after the male and the female.
Yes, visit the home, and it's more of an interview process. You have to go through and
personally ensure that you're not buying a pure breed from a puppy mill, because to get into the story of a puppy mill is going to be a whole different issue. We could probably have another
right.
You're kind of borderlining on a lot of animal welfare issues next, which can be a very hot topic, Thanuja.
Right. Google it. But adopt, don't shop is it's a very real issue, guys. So let's be very honest here. It's a huge societal problem world over, and a lot of animals do need to be adopted. If you love your pure breeds, like me, I love my pure breeds. I've got a German Shepherd at home. At the same time, I've got a rescue. So you can do that. You can have a rescue. You can have a pure breed as well at home. Just try and balance it and try and help those animals out there that really need a home. And when you adopt from the streets, always remember that you're actually giving space for another dog in a shelter to be adopted as well. So it's all a process, like a domino effect that happens. So definitely the way for me going forward is adopting and not shopping. But yeah, if you love your pure breeds, I don't have anything against pure breeds. Like I said, I'm a huge adopt, don't shop advocate, but balance it. Balance is important. Balance is key.
Thanuja, do you find there's been an incline in terms of adoptions, or is it declining?
No,
what do you think?
Massive increase in terms of adoption. A lot of people these days actually adopt and not shop, because I think campaigns worldwide show suffering of strays. Everybody's online. This is where the strength of social media also comes in. You get to see how the strays really suffer in the streets. And no animal should be put through that. So I feel it's Adopt Don't Shop has come a long way, especially over the course of 10 years. Definitely increased very, very much.
Okay, thank you. We've got another question from Miss Vasanta. Her question is, can those who may be physically disabled and need a service dog, can they use our public transport system? What are the regulations on this?
Oh, that's a very interesting topic. Thanuja, do you want to start?
No, actually, this is under your.
No, in fact, honestly, yeah, well, this is a passionate question in mine because I have a couple of friends who are disabled, and how the dog is so-called that real key surrogate that centers them. The amount of depression a person who is disabled goes through, it's phenomenal. I mean, and seen friends through it, and I guess we've been pushing for it as a foundation to drive the need for dogs, especially because there's always a taboo with dogs moving in a public environment. And predominantly why we started up our school, the Canine Sports Club, was predominantly to raise the standards of care as well as to socialize an animal in a public setting. And at the moment, we're kind of sending letters out and hopefully to get the school back on. Because if you don't drive this forward as they did in a lot of countries, Australia, the Western world, socialization is one key part of getting animals into the public environment where the dog doesn't misbehave and kind of knows what he has to do. And most of the time, what do you call that, a buddy or a disabled person's pet would be a very important key asset to have. But unfortunately, in this day and age, legislation has not been very open to allowing dogs in a public area. I was aware that Prasarana had opened up. There was options of the disabled moving their pets through the MRT thingy, but I've not seen anything formally done. But yes, we should. We are now moving towards more of a developing nation. I think the standards would also mean that the disabled can't be left behind, and animals that are basically under the care for the disabled, with the disabled, should also be respected in that new way.
Okay.
So I hope that helps. But as how far legislation has gone through, I think it's still a long way to go. I think it needs the local councils and ministries to come together with I think the Ministry of Women Affairs and thingy to kind of network this whole thing together and push that forward. But what I've seen with animals and the disabled, amazing. Even at our hospital, we have a couple of members of the team. One of them, especially interesting enough, was a 18-year-old chap who's worked with us for nearly 15 years, and he's with Down syndrome, and he does an amazing job in managing animals that are virtually after surgery. And the amount of care he takes to feed them and love these animals is amazing, and that has helped him from being technically disabled, where he couldn't talk, to finally talking within 2 years. Can you imagine that? And he can speak to you now in English and Bahasa without going through school, by the way. So he was virtually self-schooled within the hospital.
Right.
And if you walk by him today, you wouldn't know he's a Down syndrome person. He's just normal. He's normal as a one. And the pride he takes to do what he does is amazing. And so I believe animals way in understanding. And if you get the right pet, and that again comes through a selection process, you got to choose the right pet for the job. And there are certain criteria there for having a kind of working dog, I call it, or disabled buddy dog for the disabled, and they go a long way.
Right.
I feel yeah, you're exactly right. I feel animals have this healing touch in a way, and when you have a pet, you will tune your pet is with you energetically, especially. I think it's just a bond that is it's just shared and it's just known. So yeah, definitely. Sorry, thank you for sharing. And yes, all for service dogs being legalized in this country, and I hope we see it in the next few years. It'll be a process.
Yes, or even service cats, by the way. I've seen some for Some parents with autistic kids, service cats do play a part. But the cat, the candidacy for the cat is an interesting thing because cats don't like too much of over pampering at times. They come when they want to, but you got to find the right one who fits into the home.
That's
Oh,
so cute.
that's quite interesting, sir. Service cats, sir. I mean, the first time I'm
Yes.
hearing
Why not?
Service cats.
Why not?
Right,
Yep.
right.
Why not?
So there's been I mean, it's proven that service cats can actually help with autistic kids. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Autistic kids, yes. It's just a contact thing, the whole contact and touch. And again, they need to go through a process of identifying the right candidate. Number one, would the child be, you see, how do I put it this way? Any form of therapy requires an audit on two sides. Number one, would the child be a good candidate? And number two, would the pet be a good candidate? But that's a whole different topic. Those are the things that we are doing at the moment, or working with different parties at the moment.
Have like a webinar where we can talk about various topics when it comes to.
Certainly, there's a lot you could do.
We can branch out from here. Yeah, this would be a good platform. From here we can actually branch out into different topics. Later we can have webinars.
True. And even with disabled, I've got a good friend, Anthony. I'm sure he's got a lot to talk about him and his doggy. It'll be an interesting session to open up to all other disabled people who are interested to ask questions about how the dog has made an awesome change in his life. Because he lives on his own, by the way, his entire life. And so the dog is his total companion. So
this is Anthony from Pet Positive, right?
Yes. An example.
Right.
Amazing work. I've worked in it over the last 2.5 years, 3 years, and it's amazing.
Okay. Sir, Thanuja and Mr. Shrilan, I think the word that you were looking for, was it fostering the dog? Is that the word?
Yes, fostering. That's the word.
One of the participants actually came up.
Yeah. Lovely. Yes, fostering.
Fostering the dog. Right.
Foster parents to a pet. That's exactly the word. Thank you, Murali.
Thank you.
It came from one of the participants. It's one of the participants.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, the next question, we have another question here from Mr. Danish Balakrishnan. Okay, His question is, what is your advice on pet owners living in condominiums? Is it a good idea considering the confined space available for them to roam freely? What safety precautions can be taken and how can we ensure that the animal is well taken care of?
We specifically spoke about it just now before we got onto the call. Shri, this is your question.
I know. It's interesting boomerang here. Thanks, Danish, for that interesting question. A lot of areas to cover. I think firstly, I think pet ownership has evolved a lot. Pet ownership in Malaysia has matured from the old days. People would normally keep the pet indoors. And I think if you're living in an apartment, environment, I would think of a smaller breed of animal would fit quite well. Cats has been not an issue in most apartments, so that's an easy one. But for doggies, I think go with a smaller breed. I know of some who have had huge dogs in an apartment. I don't think it's right in the long run unless you have a lot of space. As in having a pet in the first place, you got to think of safe-proofing your apartment. For example, the balcony area. We've had tons of cases where the dog or cat kind of jumped off the balcony chasing after a bird. I mean, I believe it. Yeah. I mean, it's like when you have a child, you got to kind of kid-proof the home. So I think living in an apartment high up, you got to think about all those when you're bringing an animal on board, because they're going to be curious. They're going to be doing their stuff, just like children. You leave them out for a while, they're on their own. And so all it is a little Tweety bird landing and then a dog flying up to catch it, and after that, flying off the balcony. Not a good thing. On an animal welfare level, no. Big trouble. And I do believe these days in urban settings, the modern apartments or the new age apartments are actually catering for it. Only thing is the bylaws have not changed. It's always been against having pets on board. And I think these days, people are also not getting married quite young. So having the surrogate pet as a child is going to be one of those important things in an apartment living, because you need to have some company. That's one. The other issues I have is old folks. See, and old folk and pets, I think they go a long way. My grandma, my dad, I mean, not that old, but the bond that he has with the dog kind of supersedes the kids because we guys are all grown up and all that. But the joy he has in having a look at the dog and talking to the dog like a child and dealing with the dog as a child, that keeps the mind pretty sane. And I believe there should be bylaw changes soon whereby guidelines should be put in place. So that comes to the next area. For example, all pets should be microchipped. Number two, proper vaccination requirements should be there and shared with the what do you call it, the apartment condo thingy for approvals, and must be up to date. Local licensing of the pet, if it's a dog, should be put into place. I guess if they're able to capture all this information, having the dog legalized in the home should be good. The other side would be the owners have to be responsible for their pet. For example, if the pet is starting to yelp a lot, there must be issues when they're at work. They have to be able to sort all this out and understand that when you live in a commune with such a small area, you have to be responsible for that area too with the rest of the other families. You can't be a nuisance. You can't have 5 or 6 dogs in the house and the place smells to hell. I think all those kind of things have to come back to us as a person. If we are going to be there, I think we have to be responsible for our action. So those are kind of things I would like to talk about and address with the area of condo living. And I think everyone should have a right of at least owning a pet for some amount of socialization. And I think people have to be also responsible for it at the same time. That's my feedback or my take on it. I don't know, Thanuja, anything on your side?
I think
Yes, Thanuja.
I don't live in an apartment or a high
Yeah,
rise.
true. Yeah.
I really want to share, but I think he perfectly covered everything, it comes to terms of socializing and caring and everything. So, yeah.
And I think the bylaws too need to be updated. I think the local ministries have to study this. Otherwise, they're constantly having to deal with strays. The reason why strays are pretty heavy around apartments and condos is people are bringing them kind of illegally, and because of all the issues of concern, they are then releasing the animal. Why release it? Legalize it. That's what it should be. And you could most probably eradicate 3/4 of the problem and get on with more important things.
That is very on. Yeah.
Mr. Shrilan, you said something about putting chips into pets.
Microchipping. It's microchip. Microchip. Yeah. It is a requirement. It is a requirement for dogs to be chipped, and I think it's good to have a pet chip because it's a form of identification. And if you want to chip your pet, you have to go to your vet. They would be the best people to visit. Your best buddy would be a vet. Believe me, honestly, when owning a pet, being a pet parent, the vet comes in as a key person in your community to visit and also ensure that your pet has an identification.
Okay, right.
And that's a norm now globally in most of the Western world.
Also, by the way, Murali, is very important. If your pet gets lost, someone discovers to the nearest, and you just go through the machine with the microchip, and you'll be able to find the owner very fast. So, yep, definitely microchip your animal.
Interesting. Nice. We have another question here from Go Ming Huat. Let's say a pet owner decides to own a male and female dog, and perhaps there is a possibility for them to mate and give birth to puppies. Is it a good idea for the pet owner to give away the puppies to other people who are interested to adopt, knowing at the same time that the puppies may already form an emotional attachment with its parents?
Did you just get a litter, Mr. What's his name?
Go Ming Huat.
Mr. Go Ming Huat just get a litter and is having emotional issues and letting go his puppies.
Yes, it's an emotional topic.
Very emotional, actually. As a pet owner, you would know this. For me, I've spayed all my female dogs whenever I get one, so I wouldn't know the attachment. But I feel it's up to you as long as your puppies are able to go to a good home. I mean, how many pups can you keep in your home with the mum and the dog, the daddy dog? You can't keep. dogs in one compound at any one point in time. So the best thing to do would be finding them a home. I think, Shri, if I'm not mistaken, a puppy can be weaned from its mum after a month or two would be the best
Yeah,
time.
about 8 weeks, like 8 to 10 weeks.
12 weeks, and then the puppy
Yes.
gets all that it needs and pretty much
Yes.
ready to go home. So it's not a bad thing. It's definitely, if you ask me, if you're weighing the pros and cons of it, it's definitely the pro side, because the pet gets to go to a good home, gets the attention that it deserves from one particular family, instead of you having 5-6 dogs at homes, which is illegal, by the way, and you're unable to provide the care and love as much as you could to probably 1 or 2 dogs that you can have at home.
True. And also, I think the mindset on, if you're going to want to breed your dog, you got to put some thought into it, because at the end of the day, do you need the number of pets around after they have the puppies? Number one. Number two, I would recommend, as Thanuja did, most pet parents to spay and neuter their pet. And spaying and neuter, I think, is one of the key projects that are done globally to reduce strays. A lot of the issues why strays exist is because pets are not spayed and neutered when they're released, and therefore they propagate. And I think, being a responsible pet parent in this community, I think it is our responsibility to make sure we are spaying and neutering every pet of ours, to ensure they, if by any chance it becomes a stray, it doesn't, add value, add on the population into the stray side of it. That's critical. Number two, I think in this day and age, trying to manage all those puppies and your dogs can be quite a burden. There's ample going on with the MCO at the moment. I think we should find a right home for them, and find somebody who would care and take care of that animal as well as you would. Obviously, the first level of find would be within your family. It could be somebody who wants, cousins, aunties, uncles, and then moving out to friends as the option.
Yeah, and I think when you weigh your puppies, just make sure they're going to good homes. Check up on them every while, how they're doing. Do visit the place. Just make sure that you have that understanding between the owner, so you can go by and see, how the pet is faring from time to time. That's very important. But yes, it's a very emotional issue, Mr. Go. I feel you also.
Thank you for the input. Next question we have here is, what can we do with our pets when we need to go overseas or away from our home? I mean, we can't just leave them at home alone during a long period. Yeah, that's the question.
Well, there are boarding services today available, predominantly through vet clinics, and there are even boutique boarding centers that you can visit, have a look. And unfortunately, during the MCO, there comes the problem. I don't think some of them are open because they are not allowed to be, but vet hospitals are open, and they would be able to assist where necessary.
Right.
And one of the very state-of-the-art animal hospital is Mr. Shrilan's Animal Hospital in Kuala Lumpur. I have visited it, and cool and amazing, and they do a really good job. So yes, if you do need to travel overseas, do visit them at the Animal Hospital in Ananthan, because...
Well, Thanuja is doing as much as doing the profile. Thank you, Thanuja, for the little profile.
I want to carrying whatever information that I can truthfully. So there.
There you go.
Okay,
thank you, Thanuja.
Another question here is, with regards to pet food availability during the MCO, how accessible is it?
It's available. I'll be frank with you. I'm involved in that industry. Honestly, the online business has kind of blossomed thanks to Lazada, Shopee, and the rest. It is available. But on a note on pet food, read and understand the product before you buy it. And it's especially during this period, if you're happy with a product that works for your dog, try not to switch. And make sure the diet is consistent, feeding times and stuff like that. That's, I think, critical. We've seen a lot of cases where people have been switching to so many interesting brands online because it's cheap, and finally the dogs come back with so many problems. And I guess at this time, what works, stay with it. And if you really have a problem, yes, then look for options, alternatives.
Well, personally sharing an experience, I had difficulty finding for my rabbit food during MCO, because the place that I usually buy was only operating twice a week compared to every day till 9 p.m. to go online. And, like Mr. Shrilan said, it's very important to not switch food drastically or suddenly.
Yes.
If you're trying to do that, then you want to introduce it slowly, because if your pet's been used to it all its life, and suddenly you introduce something new totally, it's going to absolutely affect its GI tract, and that can be very dangerous.
Correct.
So, and yeah, everything's available online. Also, make sure you verify the sources that you're buying from, the websites that you're buying from, because there are lots of fake, not legitimate brands that also have a lot of counterfeit. So you want to check up on things like that as well.
True. And then of course the source or the store. Make sure you get. There's something I've kind of learned now. You got to understand who you're buying from, because on Lazada you can see the product and it could be a scam. So be a little careful online. But food is available. Unfortunately, I know most pet shops are not open full on until the MCO is lifted. But vet clinics could be also a good source. Please contact them if you need any help. They should be able to assist.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
I'll take just one or two more questions. This is from Ms. Darshini. Can we ask Mr. Shrilan what advice he gives before deciding to add another dog to the household?
Well, let's start first. Number one is if you already have a pet, there must be a reason why you want another one. 2, the space. 3, based on the size of dog, resources, and time. Of course, the bigger the breed, the more exercise required, and there's a lot more activity. See, there are different class of dogs, if you know, a toy breed right up to a working dog. A working dog would be a larger breed. So if you're looking at a working dog, obviously there needs to be a lot of activity and exercise, just not the companionship to have one because you have another dog. Think about that. Another thing is sometimes you may want to have another dog because you have an older pet already. Also, do note sometimes there are emotional issues. So introduction of the newer dog into the family plays also a very important role that the older dog must understand. And it takes a little while, for that bonding to occur. You need to be involved in that transition. Let's put it that way. Then you kind of not have too much of an issue. Most of the issues are normally there's going to be behavioral issues due to territorial control. Dogs work by territory, for example, even cats. So when you have an alpha doggy or catty, they may not like to have another one on board, but you'll not know about this till you'll find out with the second fellow that comes in. So to understand that, you'll need to kind of get them to socialize and understand and bond in a way where you have to participate in the process. That is why we have a doggy school. And we find that in most cases, it's observing those little traits that you want to deal with. And it's just like a child, get them to bond and understand why the second pet comes in, and that's about it. So I think about it before you do. And if you do need to do so, there are ways to deal with it. And there are also a lot of help tips online you can actually run through. We may have some on our website, MNAWF.org.my. But good point. I'll try to research for more content to see what we can do and put it up for those who wish to find out more.
Right.
I hope that helps.
Yes, Darshini, I hope that helps. Thank you. Okay, the one last question. Okay, this question here is from Wafa. Does microchip for pets in Malaysia have the details of their owners?
No, it's going to be a passive chip. So it's normally an identification number, which the vet will then paste it back onto that vaccination card you have, and you got to keep that as a record. I know there are active chips around, but it's not a norm yet to have them kind of utilized in the local market.
Right. Okay, this will be the last question. Buying pet food or giving them our leftover food, which one is better to feed them? This is from
let's be frank. If it's going to, sorry, is it Tanu? Tanu, do you want to work on that one?
Yeah, maybe Thanuja, you can share a little bit.
It's fine. Gee, go ahead. I'll take it up to you. No problem.
Okay, well, I mean, when it comes to table scrapping, to be honest with you, table scraps would not provide complete and balanced diet for the pet, right? And you got to understand dogs and omnivore, cats and obligate carnivore. And so there are different requirements on nutritional profiles here. So how would you as a pet owner understand the scrap that you're finished with for dinner would fit into the pet's requirement? And how do you maintain it, especially if the dog gets older after a certain age of 7 and above? One has to be very careful. So I think table scrapping may not be the way to go. In fact, it's a very irresponsible way to go, because predominantly, under the Animal Welfare Act, the 5 freedoms is one of the critical factors on even the human 5 freedoms or the animal 5 freedoms. One important area is on the freedom to have the right diet, nutrition. Food must be available, and it needs to be complete and balanced for the pet to ensure the animal has a good life ahead from a puppy right up to a mature pet. And same with a cat or a hamster or rabbit. So I'm totally against table scrapping. And we've seen a lot of cases where table scrapping has turned to kind of diseases, like where dogs suffer kidney disease and other problems, which you don't want to add more to your plate in time to come. All right. So finding a more complete and balanced diet will be critical, and it should also be focused on the life stage of the animal.
Okay. Thanuja, would you like to add?
Like what Mr. Shrilan said, in my household, table scrapping is a big no-no when it comes to the dogs, especially because your dog will come to the table, sit down, and look at you and give you that puppy face, like, please give me some. But yes, it causes a lot of disease in time, skin issues especially. There's no nutritional value to it at all. You also need to remember that when you have a pet, they have their immune system. They have a digestive tract. If you're going to feed them fatty food, it's going to go and clog their arteries, just like how it would you. So just make sure you're always feeding them highly nutritious food. Of course, as they age, you also need to be careful as to the food you feed them, because just like we age, we're not supposed to eat too much of sugary stuff as we grow older. We're not supposed to be having too fatty food. And nowadays when you see pet food, they have 1 to 2 years, 5 to 6 years. So accordingly, as they age, you also want to switch up their food. But that's why there's treats. You don't table scrap, but you treat them with the appropriate treats according to a cat or to a dog. So table scrapping is a big no-no, and it becomes very messy and very, very. It's just not good for the pet ultimately in the long run. Because let's say, for example, if you have a pet at home and you have a guest over, you have your pet who's used to table scrapping coming and sitting down, and my pet used to come and paw the guest in the house, because I didn't know when I was away, my mom was actually feeding her little food while she was at the table. So it can be a bit of a nuisance, Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Thank you for that input. Thank you. I would have never thought so much about table scrapping, honestly.
Well, nobody does most of the time, Murali. They end up putting it in the bowl and dealing with it. That's about it. But
yeah.
I hope it's food for thought, by the way.
Yes, it is definitely food for thought. Thank you. The very last question. A cute one here from Mr. Raymond. Is it true chocolates are bad for dogs?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
One has to be very careful. I don't know the technicality behind it, but yes, chocolates are good for us, but not for dogs. Yes.
Even
and also, sorry, and the other thing you got to notice with chocolates too, because there's also milk. Level of lactose is also bad for pets. So cattle milk, cow's milk, animals are lactose intolerant. They cannot handle all that. So you got to be a bit careful.
As a puppy, don't go your puppy goat's milk is the way to go. I think if you really need to resort to giving milk, then cow's milk. So yes, chocolates are a big no.
Thank you very much. We're running short of time. If it's okay, Mr. Shrilan and Thanuja, I will leave your emails with the participants, so if they have any further questions, they could contact you via email. Would that be okay?
Sure, no problem. That'll be fine.
All right. So thank you, Mr. Shrilan and Thanuja. Thank you for this insightful session. I believe a lot of us have actually benefited from this. There are a lot of things that I never knew about pet care, so I'm a little more educated now about this issue. Thank you very much. Hopefully from this session, we can actually branch out to more different areas in future.
Cool. Yes.
Like what Thanuja mentioned earlier, puppy mills and even dogs for the disabled and areas like that. Thank you all to the participants. Thank you for joining us here today. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for the invitation. Yes.
No
And
problem,
everyone.
Thank you.
keep safe and keep well.
Yes.
Thank you, Murali.
Stay safe,
Shrilan,
everyone.
and
Thank you,
Thanuja.
Murali. Thank you, Thanuja.
No worries.
Thank you, Murali, and thank you, the help team.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shrilan and Thanuja.
No worries. More than welcome. More than welcome, Danish. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, I think it was very informative, and I think a lot of us benefited from all the advice given.
Oh, indeed. Please practice. Have fun. Have fun in it. The most important thing, Danish, I like to leave behind is have fun with your pet. That's the most important during this period. Because while at home, believe me, I think your pet is enjoying this whole moment being with you.
Actually, for a short spell, we had a pet, a cat. But unfortunately, within 1 month that the cat was with us, we found out that the cat was a carrier.
Oh dear.
A particular disease, and so we had to, give the cat back to the original owner to it. You see. So again, like I said, it can be quite emotional when you have to actually part with.
Oh, that's another topic altogether. In fact, that I think my father is pretty good at this whole area called the parting of with a pet. That's a tough one.
So much fun.
All right.
Yeah. You know what they used to say, that dogs prepare you for children and cats prepare you for teenagers.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Stay safe. We have more webinars coming up today. Another major one at 3 o'clock. Thanks, Danish and Murali, Thanuja and Shrilan.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Thanuja.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. All okay, Chief?
Okay. Good work.
Well done.
Well done. All right. I'm going to hang up for now.
Okay.
Take care.
I'll just leave the emails and then I'll hang up.